The smell of grilled salmon and family tension filled the air at Romano's Steakhouse as my brother Daniel finished his third story about closing another $1 million real estate deal. I sat across from him, methodically cutting my chicken parmesan while he gestured dramatically with his wine glass. And then I told the client, Daniel continued, his voice carrying to nearby tables, this property isn't just an investment, it's a legacy. Boom. Sign the contract right there. My parents beamed with pride from either side of the table. Mom reached over and squeezed Daniel's hand. We're so proud of you, sweetheart. Senior partner at 32. It's incredible. Dad nodded approvingly. That's what happens when you set real goals and work toward them. When you think big. I took a sip of water, letting their praise for Daniel wash over me like it had every family dinner for the past 5 years. Ever since I'd left my corporate consulting job to start what they called my warehouse experiment. Speaking of thinking big, Daniel said, turning his attention to me with that familiar smirk. Jordan, how's the, shipping business going? Jordan Walsh. That was me. The family disappointment who'd walked away from a 6-figure salary to work in what they assumed was manual labor. What they didn't know was that my warehouse work involved managing a logistics empire that moved $2.3 billion worth of goods annually. It's going well, I said simply, taking another bite. Well. Daniel laughed, the sound sharp and condescending. Jordan, you work in a warehouse. You literally move boxes for a living. Mom tried to soften the blow. Daniel, your brother is finding his path. Finding his path? Daniel's voice rose. Mom, he's 29 years old. When I was 29, I was already making partner-level decisions. Jordan's still pretending that pushing freight around is some kind of career. I set down my fork and looked at my brother. Same expensive suit, same perfectly styled hair, same attitude that had defined our relationship since childhood. Daniel had always been the golden child valedictorian, Harvard MBA, fast track to success. I'd been the one who asked too many questions, took too many risks, thought too far outside conventional boxes. Stop pretending to be successful, Daniel continued, clearly enjoying his audience. You're just a warehouse worker. There's nothing wrong with honest work, but let's not dress it up as something it's not. I nodded quietly, checking my watch. 7:43 p.m. The Forbes article would go live at midnight Eastern Time. In 4 hours and 17 minutes, everything would change. Your brother has a point, Dad said gently. Jordan, we're worried about you. You had such potential. Top of your class in business school, that consulting position at Morrison & Associates. I was making $120,000 a year, I confirmed. Exactly. Mom exclaimed. And you threw it all away to work in shipping. What I don't understand, Daniel said, leaning forward, is why you keep acting like you're some kind of entrepreneur. You work for someone else. You punch a time clock. You're basically a glorified delivery guy. The waiter appeared to refill our water glasses, and I noticed him glance at me with recognition. He probably read the industry publications where my name had been appearing more frequently lately. But my family didn't read those publications. They were too busy celebrating Daniel's traditional success to notice anything happening outside their narrow definition of achievement. Daniel's right, Dad continued. It's time to be realistic about your future. You can't live in fantasy forever. What fantasy is that? I asked. This idea that you're building something significant, Daniel said with exaggerated patience. Jordan, you work in a warehouse. In New Jersey. You drive a 10-year-old Honda and live in a studio apartment. When are you going to admit that maybe your original career path was the right one? I pulled out my phone, pretending to check messages while actually reviewing the final draft of tomorrow's article. The headline read, The $2.3 billion Disruptor, How Jordan Walsh Revolutionized Global Logistics from a New Jersey Warehouse. The photo was striking, me standing in front of one of my automated sorting facilities, wearing the same simple work clothes I wore every day. The same clothes my family assumed meant I was unsuccessful. Put the phone away, Mom said. This is family time. Sorry. I slipped the phone back into my pocket. Daniel, you mentioned thinking big. What's the biggest deal you've ever closed? His chest puffed with pride. $8.5 million. Mixed-use development downtown. Took 6 months to negotiate, but I pulled it off. That's impressive. Thank you. He straightened his tie. Not everyone can handle that level of pressure, that scale of responsibility. I nodded thoughtfully. Last month, I'd signed a contract to handle Amazon's East Coast distribution network. The deal was worth $847 million annually. But Daniel didn't need to know that yet. The point is, Dad said, Daniel found his calling early and stuck with it. No detours, no experimenting. Just focused ambition. Whereas Jordan, Daniel added with a laugh, is still experimenting with manual labor. The waiter returned with our dessert menus. As he handed me mine, he leaned in slightly. Excuse me, sir. Aren't you the Jordan Walsh from the logistics articles in Supply Chain Management today? My family looked up with confusion. I smiled at the waiter. Yes, that's me. I thought so. I'm studying business management at Rutgers. Your supply chain innovations are legendary in our program. Professor Martinez uses your case studies in class. Daniel's expression shifted from amusement to confusion. Case studies. Oh yes, the waiter continued enthusiastically. Mr. Walsh revolutionized automated sorting systems. His company processes more freight than any independent logistics firm in the country. I could feel my family's eyes on me. Thank you, that's very kind. Would it be possible to get a photo? My classmates won't believe I met you. Of course. As the waiter took a quick selfie with me, I noticed my family exchanging glances. When he left, the table fell silent. Jordan, Mom said slowly, what was he talking about? Probably some trade publication article, I said casually. The logistics industry is pretty small. People know each other. Daniel wasn't buying it. He said case studies. What case studies? I shrugged. Harvard Business School did a study on some of our automation processes. It's not a big deal. Harvard. Dad's voice cracked slightly. And Princeton, I added. MIT did one too, but that was more technical. The silence stretched longer this time. Daniel pulled out his phone. What's the name of your company? Walsh Logistics Solutions. I watched him type, his confident expression gradually morphing into something approaching shock. This can't be right, he muttered, staring at his screen. What? Mom asked. Daniel turned his phone toward the table. According to this, Walsh Logistics Solutions is valued at over $1 billion. That's probably just industry speculation, I said mildly. Dad grabbed the phone, scrolling frantically. Jordan, this article says you own the largest automated warehouse network on the East Coast. Technically the largest private network, I corrected. Amazon's is bigger, but they're not exactly independent. My mother's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. You own warehouses? Plural. 17 facilities across 8 states, I confirmed. Plus the distribution centers and the transport fleet. Daniel's face had gone pale. Transport fleet. Trucks mostly. Some rail capacity. We're looking into drone delivery for the final mile, but that's still in development. The family stared at me like I'd just announced I was an alien. Which, given their assumptions about my life, probably wasn't far from how they felt. How is this possible? Mom whispered. Well, when I left Morrison & Associates, I used my savings to buy a failing warehouse in Newark. The owner was behind on payments, needed a quick sale. I got it for $200,000. $200,000? Dad's voice was hoarse. Where did you get $200,000? Savings mostly. I lived pretty modestly during my consulting years. Plus a small business loan. Daniel found his voice. But that was 5 years ago. How did you go from one warehouse to this? I smiled, remembering those early days. Automation. Everyone was doing logistics the same way they'd been doing it for decades. I figured out how to do it faster, cheaper, and more accurately. And Mom prompted. And companies started hiring us. First local businesses, then regional chains, then national retailers. We grew pretty quickly. How quickly? Daniel's question came out as barely more than a whisper. The first year we did $12 million in revenue. Last year we did $2.3 billion. The number hung in the air like a physical presence. My family sat frozen, trying to process what they'd just heard. Billion. Dad repeated. With AB. With AB. Daniel's phone started buzzing. Then Mom's. Then Dad's. All at once their phones lit up with notifications. What's happening? Mom asked, checking her screen. Daniel's face went white. Forbes just published something. About Jordan. My heart rate picked up slightly. The article had gone live early. What does it say? Dad asked urgently. Daniel read from his phone, his voice shaking. The $2.3 billion disruptor. How Jordan Walsh built America's largest private logistics empire from a single New Jersey warehouse. More silence. Longer this time. There's a photo, Daniel continued weakly, of Jordan, in work clothes, standing in front of a massive automated facility. Mom grabbed the phone, staring at the screen. This is you. This is really you. That's our Newark facility, I confirmed. Our first one. We've expanded it considerably since then. Dad leaned over to look at the phone. It says here you're on the Forbes billionaire list. Just barely, I said modestly. Net worth fluctuates with the business valuation. Daniel set down his phone with shaking hands. Jordan, you're a billionaire? On paper. Most of it's tied up in the company. Most of it. Mom's voice had gone up an octave. Well, some of it. I do all right. The understatement of the century. Last month's dividend payment alone had been more than Daniel made in 2 years. I don't understand, Daniel said, running his hands through his perfectly styled hair. You work in a warehouse. You drive an old Honda. You live in a studio apartment. I work in my warehouses because I like staying close to operations. I drive an old Honda because it's reliable and efficient. And I live in a studio apartment because I travel constantly for business and don't need much space. But the clothes, Mom protested. You always look like a warehouse worker? I smiled. Because I am a warehouse worker. I just happen to own the warehouses. Daniel's phone buzzed again. Then again. And again. People are calling me, he said, staring at the screen. My colleagues. They're asking if I'm related to the Jordan Walsh from Forbes. Are you going to tell them yes? I asked. He looked at me like he'd never seen me before. I don't know what to say. You could start with an apology, Dad suggested quietly. Daniel flinched. Jordan, I'm sorry. We all are. We had no idea. No idea about what? That I was successful? That I'd built something meaningful? Or no idea because you never asked? The accusation hit home. I could see it in their faces. We thought we knew, Mom said weakly. We thought you were wasting my potential? I supplied. Throwing my life away? Being unrealistic about my future. More silence. For 5 years, I continued, every family dinner has been the same. Daniel talks about his success, you celebrate his achievements, and then you all take turns explaining why my life is a disappointment. We didn't mean it that way, Dad protested. Didn't you? Daniel just spent 20 minutes telling me I was pretending to be successful. You spent 15 minutes lecturing me about realistic expectations. Mom suggested I was finding my path, like I was some kind of lost child. Daniel's phone rang. He declined the call, but it immediately rang again. That's probably going to keep happening, I observed. The Forbes article is already trending on social media. Your friends are going to have questions. What do I tell them? He asked. Tell them the truth. Tell them your brother built a billion-dollar company while you were all telling him he was a failure. The words stung and I could see it. But they needed to sting. Jordan, Mom said carefully, we're proud of you. We always have been. Have you? Because this is the first time any of you have shown interest in my actual work. For 5 years, you've dismissed everything I've built as some kind of phase. Dad cleared his throat. We made assumptions. We were wrong. Yes, you were. But the question now is, what are you going to do about it? Daniel looked up from his phone. What do you mean? I mean, do you want to have a real relationship with me? One based on who I actually am instead of who you assumed I was? Or do you want to keep pretending that your definition of success is the only one that matters? The waiter returned, probably drawn by the obviously intense conversation happening at our table. Is everything all right here? Can I get you anything else? Actually, I said, standing up, could you bring the check? I need to get going. Of course, Mr. Walsh. As the waiter walked away, my family stared at me. You're leaving? Mom asked. I have a conference call with our Singapore office in an hour. Different time zones make scheduling challenging. Singapore. Daniel repeated. We're expanding into Asian markets. Joint venture with 3 local firms. Should add about $800 million in annual revenue if the projections hold. I pulled out my wallet, a simple leather billfold that probably looked cheap to them but had actually been custom-made by the same artisan who made wallets for Fortune 500 CEOs. "Dinner's on me tonight," I said, placing my Black American Express Centurion card on the table. Daniel's eyes widened. "Is that a black card?" "Yes. Comes with the territory." The waiter returned with the check, saw my card and nodded respectfully. "Thank you, Mr. Walsh. I'll take care of this right away." As he walked away, I looked at my family. "I want you all to understand something. For the past 5 years I've been building something incredible. Something that employs over 8,000 people, serves hundreds of companies and moves billions of dollars worth of goods every year." They listened in silence. "And during that entire time my own family has treated me like a disappointment. Like someone who needed to be fixed, guided, or rescued from my own poor decisions." "We didn't know," Mom said again. "You didn't know because you never asked. You made assumptions based on appearances and never bothered to look deeper." The waiter returned with my card and a receipt. "Thank you again, Mr. Walsh. It's been an honor." I signed the receipt, including a generous tip. "Thank you." As I gathered my jacket, Daniel finally spoke. "Jordan, what happens now? Between us, I mean." I looked at him, my older brother who'd spent his entire life believing he was more successful than me, only to discover that my warehouse job generated more revenue in a month than his real estate firm did in a year. "That depends on you, Daniel. All of you. If you want to keep judging people based on superficial measures of success, then we probably don't have much to talk about." "And if we don't?" Dad asked. "Then maybe you'll take the time to actually get to know me. To understand what I've built and why it matters. To see that success comes in many forms, and just because someone's path doesn't look like yours doesn't mean they're headed in the wrong direction." I stood up, straightening my simple button-down shirt, the same type of shirt I wore every day to work, whether I was checking inventory in a warehouse or presenting to Fortune 500 executives. "My assistant will send you the Forbes article link," I said. "Read it. All of it. Then call me if you want to have an actual conversation about my life instead of a lecture about how I should be living it." As I walked toward the restaurant exit, I could hear their phones buzzing again. Probably more calls from friends and colleagues who'd seen the article. By tomorrow, everyone in their social circles would know that the warehouse worker they'd been pitying was actually one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the country. Outside the restaurant, my driver was waiting with the car. Not the old Honda I drove to family dinners, but the Mercedes I used for business. I'd been keeping up the facade for so long that even my transportation had become part of the performance. "How did it go, sir?" James asked as I got into the back seat. "About as expected," I replied, checking my phone. 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, and over 200 LinkedIn notifications. The Forbes article went live early. My family just found out they've been lecturing a billionaire about realistic career expectations. James chuckled. "That must have been interesting." Interesting is one word for it. As we drove through the city, I thought about the conversation I'd just left behind. Part of me felt vindicated. After years of being treated like the family failure, they finally understood what I'd actually accomplished. But mostly I felt sad. Sad that it had taken a Forbes article for my own family to see my worth. Sad that they'd spent 5 years worrying about my future while I was busy building one of the most successful companies in my industry. My phone rang. "Daniel." I considered not answering, but curiosity won. "Hello. Jordan, it's me. I wanted to say something." "What's that?" "I've been reading the Forbes article. All of it. And some of the other articles they reference. About your company, your innovations, your impact on the industry." I waited. I had no idea. I truly had no idea what you'd built. And I'm not just talking about the money, although that's impressive. I'm talking about what you've actually accomplished. The technology, the efficiency improvements, the jobs you've created. Thank you. No, Jordan. Thank you. Thank you for not giving up on your vision even when we all told you to. Thank you for proving that there are different ways to be successful. And thank you for showing me how small my own thinking has been. It was a start. Daniel. Yeah. Next time we have dinner, maybe you can tell me about your real estate deals and I can tell you about logistics innovations. Like actual siblings who are interested in each other's lives. I'd like that. I'd really like that. After we hung up, I leaned back in the leather seat and smiled. Maybe the Forbes article had done more than just reveal my success to the world. Maybe it had given my family a chance to see me clearly for the first time. And maybe, just maybe, we could build something better than what we'd had before. Something based on mutual respect instead of assumptions. Something worthy of people who'd learned to see past appearances to the substance underneath. My phone buzzed with another call. This time it was Mom. I answered on the second ring. Hi, Mom. Jordan, sweetheart, I just finished reading the article. All of it. And I wanted to say. Her voice caught. I wanted to say how proud I am of you. Not because of the money, but because of what you built. Because of who you are. Thanks, Mom. And I wanted to ask, would you maybe show me one of your warehouses sometime? I'd love to see what you've created. I looked out the window at the city lights, thinking about my family, my company, and the future I was still building. I'd love to show you, Mom. I'd really love to show you. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving people wrong. Sometimes it's giving them the chance to see they were wrong and helping them become better people because of it. And sometimes, just sometimes, a Forbes cover story can heal a family that forgot how to see each other clearly. The warehouse where it all started was only 20 minutes away. Maybe it was time to bring them home.